Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 533 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is systems. Our quote of the day comes to us from James Clear. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Before we dive in, I want to give a quick shout out to our new apparel line. Collaboration built around positivity, mindset, and inspiration. If you're looking for something inspiring to wear, check out our t-shirts and sweatshirts over at positivitytribemerch.com. Once again, positivitytribemerch.com. Your support means the world to us. Thank you. Now, on to today's guest, someone whose work I've admired for quite some time. Not only is he a best-selling author and high-performance coach, but Craig Ballantyne is a living example of what happens when you combine discipline, structure, and purpose-driven systems. Make sure you get ready to take some notes. I know you will enjoy today's episode. Craig, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Thank you very much. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Appreciate you being here. And the first question I ask everybody, I have to ask you, I know the answer, but are you ready to positively impact at least one person today?
1,000%.
The no quit question I ask each guest, and obviously the whole premise behind our show is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never give up. But I wanted to ask, and I'm actually really interested in your answer, if you have a no quit story of your own that you'd like to kick off today's show with.
Yeah, totally. So, I used to have severe anxiety attacks back when I was a young man, late 20s. And I went to the emergency room a couple times, in bad shape. And it was all self-induced, because I was binge drinker on the weekends. I was personal trainer during the week. And it was just hypocritical lifestyle. And when I had those anxiety attacks, when you're in that state, man, you would do anything to get out of it. Now, I wouldn't take medication. I wouldn't go to the doctor and try and get any pills for it. I knew that I had to work my way out of it naturally. And so I turned over every rock, and that's the no quit approach, right? It's, if you got a problem, you figure out the first step and you commit to turning over every rock until you solve that problem. So I did yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation, all of these things. And I didn't like any of them, but they were foundational for making that shift back into regular physiological condition, but also the mental condition. And so I did those things. It was a really tough, I would say it was 5 months from the first anxiety attack till the day that I got rid of, the last bit of it. And then I had to fight it off a couple times in the next year or so after that. But I set myself up by not quitting with the tools that are necessary to get through anything. And so the message here for everybody out listening, when you're going through that season of life, as Winston Churchill once said, and maybe somebody said it before him, but if you're going through hell, keep going, because you got no other choice. You're not going to quit, and you're a high performer. So that's what I want to say to everybody.
I love that. Before we go into your book, which we'll touch on quite a bit, and you and I spoke offline, but a fun question I ask each guest is, if you had to define yourself, but you could only pick one word, what word would you pick?
Rational. My wife thinks I'm overly rational. But that's it. It's truly rational. Like, I've got to make a rational decision, and you got to make the rational decision based on what's right for your right life. And so that's the way that I look at it.
I thought you would have said discipline, just because I've been a fan of your work for a while, and we have some friends in common. But for our listeners that are listening to this and can't see, your new book, The Dark Side of Discipline, is phenomenal. And for any of our listeners that are looking to change something and read a phenomenal book that not only gives you some really great information, but takes it a step further and gives you the steps and the tools, I would highly, highly suggest this book. And the first question I want to gear towards this conversation is you talked a lot in the book, and not only in the book, but some of your social media and some of your podcast about cold plunges and these online challenges. And Craig, to be completely transparent with you, at first, as I was reading or listening, I was almost arguing with you out loud saying, well, but some of these challenges are good and cold plunges can do certain things. But as you explained it and you went into great detail, you talked about something that I want to pick your brain on, the idea of chasing your own race as opposed to chasing something on social media, on the internet. And I want to be clear, I'm not anti-challenges or anything like that, but the way you positioned it, it just completely made me think differently about chasing and following my own race, my definition of success versus something that's popular on social media.
Yeah, well, let's unpack a bunch of things here. So you thought I was going to say discipline, but I think discipline is actually overvalued. And it's not, if I was to use a different word besides rational, it's systematized because systems are so much stronger than discipline. Discipline, willpower, like you're going to wake up and you're going to white knuckle your way through life, making all these decisions based on like, I'm hardcore discipline. Like I'm going to say no to chocolate cake and I'm going to say no to this. And like that's exhausting, and it's a very difficult way to go through life because discipline is a depletable resource. So discipline is overrated. Systems are underrated because systems are the things that allow you to make the right decisions with less decision fatigue and automatically, and to make the right decision. Such as, if you want to get up on time in the morning and not hit snooze, you're going to lose that battle if you're just relying on discipline. But if you are setting it up with systems where you have systems to get to bed the night before, and then you have systems of accountability that, oh man, if I hit snooze, I have to go and tell somebody I deeply do not want to disappoint that I hit snooze. That's a system that's actually going to help you make the right decision. So systems are far more important. And anything that anybody thinks is brilliant in the world, whether it is a sporting team, whether it in a sporting team's performance, or whether it is a movie, or whether it is a HBO comedy special of their favorite comedian, it's all based on preparation and systems. The teams that win are the teams that have done the best preparation and the best systems. They don't win on discipline. They win on systems. And so that's the key thing there. So now we go to the challenges. And and here's what I don't like about the challenge is that the challenges that people find online were created by some individual. And that individual has a bias towards creating a challenge that serves them. But that's like, going and doing somebody else's workout. If you want to be a really, really awesome football player and you find some bodybuilders workout online and you think, oh man, this is a really tough workout. Yeah, sure, it's a tough workout and takes a lot of, willpower and discipline to get through it, but it's not actually the right thing for your goals. So one of these ones that I rip on all the time is, 100 push-ups in 100 days. Well, what good is that? It's not actually that good. Like the training effect of it is very low for anybody that's actually fit. And the training effect for somebody that's overweight and out of shape is that they're going to get an overuse injury and they're going to get hurt from it. So it's actually a detrimental challenge. And some guy came up with it because it sounded awesome. But why 100 push-ups in 100 days? Why not 110 push-ups in 100 days? Why not 99 push-ups in 99? Like it's just ridiculous, right? It's not rational. And that's why I find I have a big problem with these things. What we need to do is, listen, you can use challenges to make yourself better, but that challenge has to be customized to you. And if that challenge is not customized to you, then it is not actually of value to you, because you would not go out and use a generic workout. If you wanted to get a scholarship in your specific sport, you would get a workout customized to you and your sport. And that's the same way we have to look at the challenges. And the last thing I'll say is that the really reason I wrote the book, one of the reasons I wrote the book, is for people to develop filters for the decision making. Okay, so ice baths, are they necessary or sufficient for success? Are they necessary? That is, everyone who's ever been successful, do they use an ice bath? Well, the answer is no. So they're not necessary to be successful. You can be successful without an ice bath. Are they sufficient? That if you do an ice bath, you are guaranteed to be successful. Well, no, I know a lot of people that are unsuccessful in life that do cold plunges. So they're not necessary or sufficient. Now, if you like them and you truly believe that they add an extra edge to your performance, and you have the time for them and the resources for them, and it's convenient, and you're not spending an hour a day driving to a place where there's a cold plunge and goofing around there and then coming back, and it's an hour total time. Like, listen, if you checks all the boxes for you and it checks all the boxes in terms of efficiency, then you can do it. But if it doesn't, you need to rethink it.
I think we could end the podcast there, because you just absolutely delivered some really important things. But it really hit me, because going back to my question about chasing or following somebody else's race or success, and I love how you said, if you're looking to get a scholarship, you want to obviously follow or mimic somebody in that specific sport. And I think the one, I don't want to say issue, but maybe challenge I have with social media is people put out things that are this quote unquote success, and it's not for everybody. And I don't want to knock anybody's material or what they put out there, because everybody can do what they want to do. But for me, some of the people like yourself that I really have followed and enjoy are the ones that break it down. And I love the way that you conceptualize how different things for different people, different times. And I'm somebody who has done different challenges in the past, and I use them myself as almost that kickstart to do something a little bit better, a little bit different, or if I want to clean up my eating or something like that. But I think if you come in from this general idea of, this challenge or this program is for anybody and everybody, that's where I find it to be misleading, because somebody who works a 9-to-5 job, and there's nothing wrong with that, should not follow the same course or coach as somebody who's looking to build a 7-figure online business. So when people come out and say like, oh, this is the only course or this is the only program, that's where I feel that it's a little bit misleading.
I think one of the things that we need to remember about social media is the stuff that we see is the stuff that's entertaining. It doesn't necessarily mean that the stuff that is entertaining is the stuff that actually is effective. Because I've been coaching people for over 25 years. And can you guess, like, the number one keystone habit for whether or not I know someone will be successful?
I would say consistency.
Consistency, but get more specific. Consistency with what?
Consistency with the things that they need to do to get to that next level.
That's certainly going to be it. But here's the thing. It's getting to bed on time. If you don't get to bed on time, you're going to wake up and you're going to hit snooze, or you're at least going to be really tired. And then you're going to over caffeinate. You're going to be running behind. If you got to get somewhere by a certain time, you're probably going to leave too late, which means you're going to be in traffic, which means you're going to be rushed. And all of these things are depleting your discipline and willpower over the course of the day. So by the time you either get to school or you get to the office or wherever you're going to, now your stress tolerance window, which is a really great concept I learned from Dr. Peter Attia in his book, Outlive. We have a stress tolerance window. And as it gets compressed by stressful events over the day, we get closer to acting out. And most men act out in anger. So you're snapping at somebody at the office or at school. By the end of the day, you come home, you're completely depleted because you had to work late or stay late at school because you started late. And now you're stuck in traffic again on the way home, and you're hungry, probably hangry, and by the time you get in the house, whether you just have a girlfriend in the house or roommates in the house, or whether you are married with kids and you got a dog, you're yelling at the dog. You're yelling at the dog because it had your shoe in the other room. Now, normally that's not something that would make you yell at the dog, but because you have knocked down every negative domino because you didn't get to bed on time the night before, everything has gone wrong in the day. But if you get to bed on time, you have a good sleep. You have the best chance of getting up on time or even early. And when everybody knows when they get up before their alarm and they start the day early, that day goes so much better. And so that is the keystone habit for success. When coaching clients come to me and they're disorganized and frazzled, I'm like, you getting to bed on time this week? And sure enough, nearly 100% of the time, the answer is no. And so this keystone habit, now here's the thing. It's the most important habit, not the cold plunge with a bunch of beautiful girls. Like, I'm seeing this guy doing ice baths with beautiful girls in California, 100 million views, right? And the girls are like up to their ankles barely in like, they're not even ice bathing. It's such a joke. It's such a scam. And here's the thing. Try and make a reel that gets even 100 views of getting to bed on time. That's my challenge. Like, I don't know how to do that. But if I figure that out and I can make getting to bed on time entertaining, maybe someone would go, you know what? I just need to get bed on time. But so the bottom line in all of this is that what we see on social media is seen because it is entertaining, not because it is guaranteed to be effective. And you have to be rational, and you have to do, which the hardest work of all, the hardest challenge of all that most people won't take, is thinking for yourself and judging, is this truly an effective technique that I need to add to my arsenal, to my toolbox, that I need to do on the daily? Or is this something that someone might do that gets a lot of views because there's a lot of, entertainment to it, but it's not actually going to help me? And so, the person who steps back, does the thinking, identifies where they want to get to in life, the straight line to success for that, and says no to all the things that are just dangerous detours and distractions, is the person who's going to win. Doesn't matter if they work a 9 to 5, doesn't matter if they're an entrepreneur, doesn't matter if they're a student athlete, pastor, doesn't matter. That's the person who's going to win.
And, I love that you positioned that question, and I was trying to come up with a obviously an answer and trying to really.
You were right, but you weren't right according to me, right?
Well,
which is a great example of the challenge thing. Like, I had my answer, I had my bias, I had my challenge, and you had your thoughts. When you weren't wrong.
If you were the teacher, I would have gotten F. But no,
no.
But going back to that, and it's such a great segue without obviously knowing that you were going to say that. But when I first launched the podcast many years ago, I would always ask the question to the guest, do you have a morning routine that you swear by? And I did that selfishly because I had some very successful people like yourselves on the show, and I'm always looking to level up and learn. But it was literally like guest after guest after guest that said, yes, ... but my morning routine starts the night before. And I think that's the biggest disconnect. And it's funny that you talk about asking your clients, because that's one of the things that I work on with my clients, especially my student athletes, is preparation and consistency is the difference between where you are, where you want to be. And the best teams, the best coaches, they prepare at a different level. And part of preparation is sleep, getting yourself ready for that workout, the trip, the game, the practice, recovery, or taping and icing or whatever before. And it just hit me like a brick that the most successful people, fill in the blank of whatever walk of life, they plan ahead and prepare. And it wasn't just common that so many of them was like, yes, I do, but it starts the night before. Yes, I do, but my morning starts, at 7 p.m. And I'm like, wait a second. So the idea of success leaves clues. So let me position, I guess, a fun follow-up question for you. If somebody's listening to this show right now, and I've been there, and I'm sure maybe in the past you've been there of, I have too much to do and I can't get to bed on time, or, I don't know what to do. Is there one suggestion you give your clients, or you have given, that to get them going in the right direction of how to begin that evening routine to segue into a successful morning routine?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the first thing that you need to do is set the reverse alarm. The reverse alarm is an hour before bed. Whatever bedtime that you are seeking to have, the alarm goes off on your phone. It's the most important alarm that you can set. It's more important than the alarm to get up in the morning. Because if you want to get to bed at 11 o'clock and you set that alarm for 10 o'clock, at 10 o'clock you turn off all the electronics. And this is where most people are going wrong, right? It's the TV, it's the laptop, it's the mobile phone. Those are the iPad. Those are the things that are keeping you up, right? Because you are scrolling, you are messaging somebody, you're watching something. And if you simply are forced to turn those off at that time, what are you left to, what are you going to do? You can talk to your partner, your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever. You can spend time with your kids, but they got to get to bed too. You can read, you can meditate, you can, take a shower, you can make lunch for tomorrow. But you're pretty much out of stuff to do after about 35 minutes, and you should be starting to get drowsy, and you're starting to wind down, and you're actually going to get to bed on time. And, research shows that you got to shut those electronics off because of the blue light that stimulates us and gets us mentally alert. And we all know that it's the last Facebook message or Instagram message or post that you see that gets you all fired up, right? And so you can't sleep. So that's the thing. Now, the missing link for a lot of people is that they know this, they have some concept of it, and now they even have a specific piece of advice, but they won't do it unless they tell somebody else that they're going to do it. Because the missing link for everybody's goals in life is accountability. We can all wake up and say, hey, listen, I'm going to train really hard for the next 3 months, or I'm going to, go on this diet, or I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to, do this nighttime routine. But if you don't tell anyone and you're the only person that knows, you're the easiest person to let down. Most people will disappoint themselves before they will disappoint another person. And so what you need to do is you need to have an accountability partner. It could be your coach. It could be a business partner. It could be a business colleague. It could be a peer that, someone you deeply do not want to disappoint. And that's the key. It has to be someone you deeply do not want to disappoint. It can also be a community of people that are like-minded, whether it's an online community or whether it's your team, and you tell those people. Now, here's the thing is if you shut that phone off at 10 o'clock, at 9:59, you need to send a message to that person and say, hey, it's 9:59. I'm shutting my phone off right now. And that's the accountability. And if they don't get that message at 9:59 every single day, and, their phone should be off, so they should get it in the morning, but it should say, it's 9:59, maybe take a screenshot or something. That will ensure you follow through. Because if you are a person of integrity, as the people listening to this are, you're not going to be a hypocrite who says one thing and does another, because that's a really low thing in the human society, is to be a hypocrite. So when you have accountability and you tell somebody you're going to do something, and that is going to be the missing link for you following through. So there's a two-part answer to that question, but it's really that reverse alarm to get organized and then the accountability to follow through.
I think it's so poignant how you break it down in just and I don't mean to simplify what you said, but a simple way of, that reverse alarm. And whether you have an iPhone, an Android, whether you have, whatever device you have, iPod, laptop, there are so many apps, there are so many ways that you can make it almost impossible not to do it. But it comes down to setting it up. And I love how you talked about the accountability. That, to me, that's one of the biggest things. And whenever I work with teams or companies, as we're trying to do different things and change things, that's one of the suggestions I make is introducing accountability partners. Because if I just tell you something random, like, oh, Craig, like, I'm going to do this, like, that's cool. Like, I'm telling you, as opposed to if I say, hey, Craig, could we grab 5 minutes every 2 weeks where literally I'll just say, hey, here are my 4 things. I did 1, 2, and 3. I didn't do it. And then vice versa. And it's just, it's eye-opening because people are like, well, is it that easy? And I think what I love about the stuff that you do is you break it down into simple steps. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying or hinting in any way that what you do or how you do it is simple. It's far from that. But what really resonated with me, and I hope with the listeners, is you break it down into, if you want to do, D, you have to do A, B, and C first. And I think in today's day and age, yes, we can get things instantaneously. I think 9 out of 10 people overcomplicate things. And what happens is then it's so complicated, they have to do these 36 steps that they just stop. And that, to me, I'm like, but you did it such a great job for 4 days. Like, why are you just giving up? Because I think they overcomplicate the entire process.
See, I take simplicity as a compliment. So when you tell me that what I've done is simple, I'm not insulted by it. I'm not offended by it. I think that because I believe success is simple. Like, even climbing Mount Everest is technically simple, right? You don't have to invent a new way up Mount Everest. Like, if you go the same way everybody does, which is what everybody does, and you get to the top, you still get counted as climbing Mount Everest. And, you see these pictures online of like these chains of hundreds of people. What are they doing? They are putting one foot in front of the other and they are climbing Mount Everest. Now, does that not sound simple? Sure as heck, that sounds simple. It ain't easy. Something can be simple, but not easy. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to provide people with simple frameworks that will make success come to them faster and better. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. It's like, it's simple to learn how to, bench press 315 pounds. It ain't easy, but it's simple. And so we are looking for simplicity, because complexity, man, that will stop you in your tracks, because the more complex something gets, the more friction points you come up against. So we are looking for simple to make hard things a little easier.
I love that. And I take it to the idea of breaking it down into what I call bite-sized pieces. And we
Mm-hmm.
all know that, before, and in the sports world, before you get your, third win in a row, I always tell teams you have to get the first win, right? Before you get your second win on the road during your season, you got to get the first. And yes, you still want to have those larger goals of, 10 wins on the road or 20 total wins. But people look at that and then they don't reverse engineer. And you talked about the reverse alarm. And I love that because I always say, okay, if this is your goal, then what are the steps we need to do? And for me, the people and the programs that I'm attracted to are the ones that make things simpler. And I love how you said, and you made the distinction between simple and easy, because I talk about that a lot. Is it's simple to understand it, simple to read it, simple to put things in place, but it's not easy to do it. And I think when people go from something simple and they make it super complex, it's just like a recipe for disaster.
Well, listen, you and I have done one of the things that people find incredibly difficult, and we've written books, right? And so, writing a book is technically simple. It's just that most people see it as such a complex thing. Like, oh, the book is, it's this thick, it's 40,000 words. Oh my gosh, where do I start? Well, you can simplify it. Like, let's just write the title. Let's write the title today. That's it. That's all we have to write. Tomorrow, let's come back and write down the 10 chapters. Great. That's all we have to do. Then let's go into each chapter and let's break it down into 5 subsections. Great. That's all we have to do. Now, in each one of those 5 subsections, let's write 3 questions underneath. That's all you have to do. You don't have to write anything yet. Okay. Now let's go and start answering those questions. And you don't even have to type it out. Let's answer those questions in audio format first. So you have this big, long audio, and now you can go and turn it into a book. And hey, did we just take the 800-pound elephant and do the, one bite at a time to eat it? Absolutely. And, when you were saying in order to get the 3 wins on the road, you first have to get the first win. It's like public speaking is another thing that came to mind, because if everybody's terrified of public speaking, can you just go up in front of a group and say one word? Yeah, okay, I can say one word, hello, and then, all right, well, we can go, now we do the next word and the next word. And it's not actually that terrifying when you break it down into the simple steps that everything in life can and should be.
I love that. And to me, that just reminded me of Toastmasters, where, I've gone through the program where you start with, a question where everyone answers a question. Then you have a 30-second speech. Then you have a minute. And I think it's just the reality is the reason Toastmasters is successful in my eyes is 2 ways. One, it's the only organization I know that's a public speaking throughout the world. But secondly is because it has a very specific systematic approach. You do A, then you do B, then you do C. And whether that person who goes through it becomes a professional speaker or not, or maybe they just want to be a better speaker for their team of 3 or just for themselves, it's very complex, broken down into, okay, you do a 15-second, a 30-second, a 60-second, and it's like people that go into public speaking. Obviously, you've done incredible things in that space. You didn't start off, I don't think, your first time someone said, hey, you want to do a speech? And you're like, yeah, sure. And they're like, all right, cool. It's going to be 7 hours nonstop, all day long, no breaks, just go. It was probably something smaller, and then you probably graduated up. But I love when people take something and they say, okay, this is how I got there, and these are the steps that I did.
Absolutely. And I think what's very important for everyone to understand is that whatever you're aiming to accomplish, whether it's in the, the physical world or the the business world, the sports performance world, is that somebody out there has already done it. And not only has somebody out there already done it, somebody out there starting with many more challenging circumstances and obstacles in their way was able to do it. And all of these things, as you said earlier, success leaves clues. There is a path to success for all of these things that has been shown over and over and over again. Just don't overcomplicate it and show up and do the work.
I love that. I've been really excited about this question, which I ask each guest. And I know you know the famous Jim Rohn quote, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If I could grant you dinner tonight with any 5 people, dead or alive, who would you pick for your 5?
So I would definitely go with my father first. He passed away about 20 years ago. I would like to have time with him. And then 4 other people, I would say, I've never have met Tony Robbins, but I heard that he is a very special individual when you get him in a small room. So I would say him. then I would say, I mean, how can you not want to have dinner with Donald Trump, no matter what you think of him? I mean, that would certainly make for an entertaining dinner. So I would add him. Then I would say five people. Never been asked the five person version of it. I would say Elon Musk. I mean, how could you not? And then I would add Charlie Munger, because Charlie Munger is the person that I recommend and talk about in the book as actually being the world's most disciplined man, which is very contrarian to what anybody thinks about discipline. Because if anybody listening to this, and maybe the young folks wouldn't, but Charlie Munger was, he died at 99.9 years old. I like to always say that he was 99.9. He was like 100 days or something days short of his birthday. And this is a guy who did none of the things that you would consider discipline today. You know, he didn't work out twice a day. In fact, he never worked out at all. You know, when he was 18, he quit working out because he didn't want to. And this guy, but he still lived to 99 and, but he had an easy way of going through life. And so he eventually became a billionaire. He was Warren Buffett's mentor, and he had everything that a man could want in life: money, power, and respect. I mean, let's be honest. What are men doing things for? Money, power, and respect. Let's be honest. And he had it all, but he did none of the things that show up on your Instagram feed as discipline. No long workouts, no running ultra marathons, no cold plunging. In fact, he would laugh at these things because he would look at them and go, "Why are you doing that? Like, that's not, you want to get better at that? Fine. But if you want to get money, power, and respect, you don't have to do those things. What you have to do is you have to think." That's what he spent most of his time doing: thinking, avoiding mistakes, and getting knowledgeable in his area and applying that to, his investments in his future. And so Charlie Munger, the world's most disciplined man, even though he never did any of the things that people would call discipline.
That reminds me of it. What is it? Dos Equis, the world's most interesting
the world's
man.
most interesting man, yeah.
So you talk about, I believe it's the Opal app, and I know.
Yes, I was going to mention that before. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I know full and fair disclosure. At least as of last time I heard you on a podcast, you don't get paid anything on it. It's just
I don't even use it, but I recommend people use it. But no, I don't get paid by it.
Well, could you just briefly touch on it? Because I think for me, again, what that action steps are, I know that people are going to be excited to follow some of your stuff and hopefully get your book.
The Opal app would be really helpful around that nighttime routine. So what the Opal app does, and I think it's only for iPhones. I think that there is one for Android called OneSec. There might be some other ones. There's one of our team members who uses a physical tool called the Brick, which when you put your phone connected to the Brick, and it's actually a small little thing, it can't do anything other than take text messages and phone calls, I think. But the Opal app, you can actually set it up on your phone to block access to everything, or limited number of things if you want. But, so if you want to go to bed at 10 o'clock, you could set your phone up that at 10 o'clock, the Opal app on your phone blocks you from using social media, blocks you from doing text messages. Maybe you leave it on for phone calls if you have some family members that might call an emergency or whatever. But now you can set it up so from 10 p.m. until 7 a.m., you can't go on social media. Well, if you set it up for that period, and you know what, that's going to be really fantastic, because sometimes you have to go to extremes to build a fence around yourself when you're dealing with destructive behaviors. This is something like when an alcoholic, they have to get rid of all the alcohol in the house. They can't have it in the house. Or the person who binge eats potato chips, you got to get it out of the house. And the Opal app blocks you from using probably the most destructive distraction in your life, which is your phone. And you can set it up for certain periods of time and certain restrictions, and that can set you free to focus on what matters, whether it's work, whether it's training, or whether it's simply following good habits.
I love that. Have you heard of the app, or have you ever used Habit Share?
No, I haven't heard of that one. I actually have like 3 apps on my phone. I have Uber, Instagram, and I don't know what you call WhatsApp an app. Like, I just don't have any apps. I avoid the technology. So therefore, if I don't use them, I don't have them, they can't distract me.
No, that's awesome. The reason I just said that for any of our listeners, and I have recommended probably Habit Share as many times as you have the Opal app.
Okay, good.
And I have nothing to do with it, but it's a accountability application where, let's say you and I were accountability partners, kind of like that text that you send or screenshot. I can pick which ones I want you to see and vice versa. And then I can see when you do them, when you don't do them. So for any of our listeners that may be looking to do that as well. I wanted to ask you, Craig, before we finish up here, for any of our listeners that are looking to find out not only more about you, but possibly some of your programs, some of your coaching and those things, wanted to just give you an opportunity to share some of that, because I'm hoping that a bunch of our listeners will go ahead and do that, as well as get your new book, which is fantastic.
Yeah, grab the new book on Amazon. So it's called The Dark Side of Discipline. You can also go to thedarksideofdiscipline.com, and all the formats are there: audiobook, ebook, paperback, hard copy. Would love a review. That means a lot to an author. You have no idea how much that means. And then finally, if you have any follow-up questions, hit me up on Instagram. That's the social media that I use the most, at Real Craig Ballantyne. I'm happy to answer your questions, or you can email me. I'm an old school email guy too, Craig@CraigBallantyne.com.
That is awesome. And then last question I have for you is the same one I have for everybody, is if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Yeah, it kind of goes with that Jim Rohn stuff that we were talking about before, about being the average of the 5 people that you spend your most time with. It really is a very important factor, being around good people, because what I have found in my life is that everything is easier when you know more good people. Everything in your life is easier when you know more good people. If you're working out on your own, you're going to get okay results. But if you have amazing training partners, you will get better results because they will push you. And so everything that I've achieved in my life, such as, when I was in my best shape ever and strongest, it's because I was around other good people. All the money that I've made in my life, like 90% of the money I've made in my life, has come from being partnered with good people, being connected with good people who showed me the way. And even my marriage, like I wouldn't have met my wife if I didn't know more good people, because I had to put my hand up and say, I need introductions. And because I had a large circle of people who had large circles of people, I was introduced to my wife. So everything is easier in life when you know more good people. So go out, add value, build the goodwill bank account with people by being a good person, and everything in life will be easier.
I think that is not only a phenomenal suggestion, life lesson, but a great way to end today's episode. And again, for our listeners, make sure you follow Craig. Definitely grab a copy of his book and leave a review, because as I can say as well, being an author, those things are so valuable. So, yeah. Craig, I appreciate you, and I hope that you and I can connect again soon.
Absolutely, Chris. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to episode number 533. When it comes to taking complex or difficult things and breaking them down into bite-sized pieces, Craig is the best. As we finish off today's episode, I encourage you to take a look at your own systems and how consistent you are with them. Lastly, I challenge you to take a look at your evening routine and what time you are actually shutting down and getting to bed. Your morning doesn't begin when you wake up. It actually starts the night before. I hope you go out and crush your day. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.